Question. I came across your video from over a year ago, Can Spiritual People Eat Meat? This is a very interesting topic for me of late. Often teachers such as Eckhart Tolle talk about being conscious in diet and listening to the body without judgment, which is consistent with the message in your video. And I do wonder if this principle would apply to a person who felt compelled to pursue cannibalism. I'll comment on that first. I don't really think so. I think cannibalism is a much lower state of consciousness where you don't really have any serious inner connection to your higher self. You're acting based on these subconscious selves. You're in a very low self-centered state of consciousness. But anyway, I've heard of meat as a grounding tool, yet there are so many easy ways to ground. For example, exercise, spending time outdoors, etc. I'm also aware that some, not all, carnivorous people report having chronic health issues when they don't consume flesh, and I gather these are physical reflections of underlying limiting beliefs on a deeper level. So let me comment on that. I have, over the 48 years I've been on the spiritual path, met a lot of spiritual people who were vegetarians or even vegans for what I would call ideological reasons. In other words, they had accepted a certain belief about eating meat, that it wasn't good, and then they forced their bodies to be vegetarian without really tuning into the body and seeing how does it affect the body. My own wife, who was a vegetarian for a number of years, came to a point where she realized this had actually damaged her body, depleted it of certain minerals and disturbed her hormones. And she has now for years been seeking to compensate for that by eating more meat in her diet. And I have met other people who, when they were on a vegetarian diet, they became what you would really call spaced out. There's also a certain concept that you can become. You have to have a balance between yin and yang, where yin is the more expansive. And so if you become too yin, your mind you can't focus, you can't concentrate. It's ADHD, basically. And I personally feel that if I eat only vegetarian food, I become too spaced out. And you can say there are other ways to ground, but I just feel that if I only eat vegetarian, which I've done for several years, I was a vegetarian, but I can't focus, I can't concentrate, I can't really have any continuous focus on a specific task. And I think there are many spiritual people, as I said, they have adopted this idea they should be vegetarians, then they don't listen to their bodies, and they actually end up damaging their bodies. I'm not saying necessarily applies to everybody, how do I know? But I think the important thing is that you seek to connect, develop some kind of connection to your body intuitively, so you sense what your body needs. And then you listen to the body. The question goes on. A fellow vegan who I chatted with opined that a conscious meat eater is worse, more karmic than an unconscious one, because they know the needless suffering slaughter that happens to highly sentient beings, yet still indulge. It is akin to intent being the difference between first degree versus third degree murder. Well, this is an example of what I'm saying, the ideological mindset, where you create some kind of idea, some kind of ideology that veganism is the only way to live because you can't harm other beings. And I have an entire playlist that's called Avatar Psychology, where I'm talking about how there are many spiritual people who came to Earth from a natural planet. But Earth is an unnatural planet. So we came here to hold a positive spiritual balance for the Earth and help the Earth progress. But you see, what we have to understand is that there are differences between natural planets and non-natural planets. On a natural planet, you don't need to eat meat. Perfectly true. But on an unnatural planet where everything is much more dense, matter is more dense, our bodies are more dense, the collective consciousness is more dense, it's a different equation. And so what we have to realize here is that everything that we see on an unnatural planet, for that matter on a natural planet as well, is all part of one connected whole. Everything is part of one connected whole. And the process that the Earth is in is of raising everything up in vibration. And I know this is subtle to grasp, but if you take this, killing animals is murder. But you are then seeing yourself as separated from the animals. You're seeing yourself separated from nature. But in reality, everything is one interconnected whole. And as conditions are on Earth right now, it's difficult for the human body to absorb certain minerals directly from plant food, whereas animals with a different digestion can do this. And we, when we consume the animals, can absorb it from the meat. Just a biological fact, as I understand it. I know vegans will probably object to this, but you know. So what I'm saying is, the animals are extensions of or creations of nature spirits, and the nature spirits do not see themselves as separated from us. They see themselves as part of this whole, and they see that human beings are the highest life form on Earth. At least we have the potential to be. And the elemental beings are seeing themselves as our servants. They want to serve us. And we are, by eating meat, we are actually allowing them to serve us, and it raises their consciousness as well. I know this will be, there will be avatars from natural planets who would vehemently object to this, but I'm just saying, are you objecting because you have this mindset from a natural planet and you haven't looked at what kind of a planet you're on and adjusted your mindset to the reality of Earth? If you again find yourself objecting to it, watch my playlist about avatar psychology and see how that resonates with you. Because I met many spiritual people who have this very idealistic, ideological mindset. Things should be this way. And the Buddha said, don't harm any sentient beings. You know, but there's a difference between harming and actually letting these beings perform their function that they have in the current state of Earth. When the Earth becomes a natural planet again, we're not going to be eating meat. But we're not there yet. We are actually quite far from it. So, quite frankly, you know, let me comment on this. This is going to make vegans even more mad. But I look at vegans, and I look at them as an example of this, the ideological mindset. You're adopting a certain mental image in your mind, and I talk about this in many of my videos, including my non-duality videos, where you're using the duality consciousness to project. This is the ultimate truth. And then you're seeking to force yourself and other people to live up to this. Right? But it's not an ultimate truth because it's actually self-contradictory. Now, I've said this in private, but I'm going to say it in public. If you are vegan, and if you want to be really, really consistent, you have to kill yourself. Because whatever you do in a human body living on Earth, you are harming animals. If you live in a house, there could have been a meadow there, but it could have been insects and lizards and frogs and birds, and you are taking up that space with your house. You are breathing air. You're breathing out CO2. It's a simple fact. And this goes to the Buddha, who talked about the interdependent originations. And it's true, we shouldn't unnecessarily harm animals. But on the other hand, in the interdependent originations that Earth currently is, we have to face reality of these current conditions and adjust to them instead of projecting that we should be on a natural planet and we should live as if we were on a natural planet. You cannot exist on Earth in a human body without harming other parts of life, or at least displacing them. But this is perfectly in order because human beings are the highest life stream on Earth. We are the ones who brought it to an unnatural state, and we are the only ones who could bring it back up to a natural state. This is our role, and there is nothing wrong with fulfilling that role. We can do it to various degrees, and we can strive to do it better and better, but we're not doing it by being in this ideological mindset where we are projecting a dualistic mental image and trying to force ourselves and others to live up to it. It's just simply not helping raise the Earth to a higher level. It's doing what all the others, the communists, the capitalists, Marxists, this and that, are doing, projecting more of the duality consciousness. Okay, so the last part of the question. It got me thinking, what exactly does it mean to be conscious in our habits? Does it include being conscious of collateral effects on others and a process used to obtain a product we consume, or just listening to the body? Can being truly present and listening to the body even allow the continuation of a habit that is harmful to life in the physical realm, or that doesn't minimize harm? Well, in a sense, I've already commented on this. Yes, we can become more and more conscious of how our actions affect others. And you see in many societies, like the more developed nations, that people have become more and more conscious. I just look in my lifetime that when I was a child, nobody even knew that cigarette smoking is dangerous to your health. And passive smoking, it was not something people thought about. So people have become more conscious of that. I also see in Denmark, where I live, more and more people buy ecological food because they become aware of the pesticides and other things we spray with. And there's more and more awareness that the farming they do in Denmark releases a lot of fertilizer into the water that produces algae, that destroys marine life, and so forth. So society is becoming more and more conscious. And it's okay for you as an individual to be on the forefront of this movement. But I'm just saying there has to be a certain balance based on the recognition of what kind of planet we are on. Because if not, you end up, and I've seen so many spiritual people do this over these many years I've been on the path, you end up going into this idealist state of mind that is completely out of touch with reality. And you end up trying to force yourself to live a certain way, and it just makes people unhappy. I mean, they just, you look at so many people who are in this ideological mindset, look how uptight they are. And they're constantly in tension, they're constantly stressed out, because they're really, nothing they do is ever good enough. As I said, if you're a consistent vegan, you can't even live on Earth. But you have to live on Earth, right? So what I'm saying is, find a balanced approach. Be on the forefront of society, but don't be so far ahead that you're basically asking the impossible of yourself or of others. It's fine to be idealistic, but to ask the impossible is setting yourself up for unhappiness. It's basically the stress that the Buddha talked about, because what did the Buddha talk about? How do you overcome suffering? Overcome attachments. And I see so many spiritual people, vegans, vegetarians, they have an attachment to this idea of how you're supposed to live. So that's why I'm saying, can being truly present and listening to the body even allow the continuation of a habit that is harmful to life in the physical realm? Well, you could say that eating meat is harmful to life in the physical realm, but it isn't necessarily harmful in the emotional, mental, and identity realm, because, as I explained, it can help raise the vibration. And it can actually help the animals go to a higher level, and the nature spirits go to a higher level. So again, it's this, you can't be too narrowly focused, and you really can't be too narrowly focused on this the physical realm, because raising your awareness means you become more aware of the higher realms and how everything is interconnected. It's really, to me, higher awareness means higher awareness of how everything is interconnected. And that's why you can't just say, oh, as a human being, I should do this, and then I'm not having any negative effect. But really, unless you raise your consciousness to a distinctly higher level, you're still going to have a negative effect at the identity, mental, and emotional levels, even if you refrain from certain physical actions. So that's what I'm saying. There are people who can say, I'm doing everything right in the physical, but their state of mind is still putting negative energy into the emotional realm, for example, or the mental realm. And therefore, they are not harmless. Basically, in order to be harmless, you could say you have to attain a Christ consciousness, and then whatever you do in the physical is not so important. Of course, there are certain things you wouldn't do, but whether you eat meat or not, it's not really that big of a deal if you have raised your consciousness beyond a certain level.